So just before we officially start, I'd like to recognize and acknowledge on behalf of the Royal City Literary Arts Society, the Kikite First Nations and all Coast Salish peoples on whose unceded territories we live, learn, and work. Okay, here we go. Candice James. Candice James is Poet Laureate of New Westminster, BC. I'm sorry, Poet Laureate Emerita of New Westminster, BC, and also an editor, writer, musician, and visual artist. She is the founder of the Royal City Literary Arts Society and the Fred Cogswell Poetry Award for Excellence in Poetry. She is a full member of the League of Canadian Poets and the Writers' Union of Canada. She is also past president of the Federation of BC Writers and Royal City Literary Arts Society. And she's the author of 17 books of poetry. Her first book, A Split in the Water, was published in 1979 by Fiddlehead Poetry Books, University of New Brunswick, and her most recent book, The Path of Loneliness, was published in 2020 by IANA Publications, Toronto, Ontario. So welcome, Candice. Looking forward to this.
It's my pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to it too. I did a lot of little tweaks and changes and pulled this poem out, that poem out, finally figured out the way I wanted to do it. And I've got it set up in order. And the first poem I'm sending out to Janet because she loves prose so much. I looked for a crow poem, and I've tried to do all my poems except for one written this year. So this one is called The Pale Ghosts of Yesterday's Crows. They sit there wisp, these pale ghosts of yesterday's crows, relaxing on the branches of their favorite tree. Sometimes they manifest as formless mist, shifting position on their branches. In their minds, the flowers haven't changed. The grass is still freshly cut. The tree remains the same, as do they, inside their eternal now. The pale ghosts of yesterday's crows pass each afternoon together, commenting on the flowers, discussing the weather, quite amazed at how time passes when it doesn't, when they're relaxing on the misty branches of their yesterday tree. Yes.
No.
This next one is called Alone, and it's in three parts, but they're very, very small. So it's like one poem, but I broke it into three because they're kind of different mind locations for me. And it's called Alone because really, we all come into this world alone, and we all leave it alone. So we think we're not alone when we're here, but in a way, we're always alone in our own aloneness. So anyhow, this kind of discusses that. 1, alone in the bourgeoning hush of night. There's a clatter and rustle of leaves in the autumn equinox of my mind. I am the aging mirror of my childhood, a glint in the crease of elusive dreams, where every street is an avenue, and the avenues are forever. 2, evenings alone, in the dark of my own making, semi-asleep. Days alone, in the heart of my own privacy, skipping stones and gathering shells, remembering the sound of waves, the edge of dreams and illusion. 3, never far from those days, I walked down yesterday's lane, alive with shadows and light, which I'd hoped would follow me home and warm the lonely evening chill. So lonely, so full of loss. I wrote these two in the it's called Waiting Room A, and it was in the medical imaging part at Royal Columbian Hospital. You have to wait a long time, so I always have a book with me so I can write poems. And right across from me was a mirror, a big oval mirror, and it had writing on it. And I was sitting across from it, and I had my cane by the door, And I could see in the mirror, I could see down the line, I could see pretty much everybody in there. And I was kind of watching them and I was writing. So the first one is called Waiting Room A. The scribble on the mirror said, "Welcome to Waiting Room A." Black writing glared from the oval mirror, stark but welcoming in its own way. It put me at ease and quelled my fear. 5 others sat in the cold waiting room, lost in their thoughts inside the gloom, anticipating what their next test would show inside their own private riptides to and fro. One seemed to be thinking on days gone before. She ended up here before the waiting room door. The woman with the long brunette hair was coming undone and just sitting there. A little blonde girl by her mother's side shared a look of love that could not be denied, as the man in the hat at the end of the hall stood up to answer the technician's call. Staring at the mirror in waiting room A, I thought of results that would soon come my way. It's all in the cards and the luck of the draw, dictated and subject to karma's law. In the Akashic records, it's written in stone. We enter and depart this world alone. None of us know how long we will stay or when we'll be summoned to waiting room A. Yeah, it's not a bad waiting room. But then, as I said, my cane, I could see in the mirror, there's my cane propped up by the door. It was an open door, but it was standing there, and I started looking at it, and I thought, wonder what the cane would say if it could talk. So this poem came out, The Cane. A multicolored sparkling cane stands beside the open door. Will it ever walk again or stand alone forevermore? If only that bright cane could talk, would it speak of better days when they went on their morning walk, when she was not lost in a haze? The cane would ask, where has she gone? In tones despairing and bereft. I don't hear her familiar song, I'm so lonely since the universe would hear her cry and gently touch her handle grip and whisper in a tender sigh with a slight trembling lip. She's gone to heaven high above and won't be coming back again. She's wrapped inside God's tender love. She's happy now and has no pain. And if that sparkling cane could speak, it would say, God bless her soul. A tear would grace its shiny cheek. Nevermore would they stroll. Nevermore would they stroll. Yeah. So that was a nice little inspiration. Now the rest are going to be more uplifting for a while before we get maudlin again. And this one's, I've got quite a few in here that have a lot to do with water, because I grew up in the summers in a place that was a lot of water, and it was Crescent Beach, and I think of it a lot. Anyway, this one's called Paper and Water. Rising from the soul of the sea, I soar to the high cliffs of thought above. With remnants of sacred memories, I soar with the wings of a dove. Walking the sky with a candlelit dream, I am a glassed ghost riding the waves of the sea, alone in the sound of a solitary word, surrounded by music that's never been heard. And somewhere, a poet is honing his craft. Somewhere, a sailor's adrift on a raft. They have 2 things in common: paper and water, fountain pen and oar. The ink marks the paper, the oar marks the water. One forever, one fleetingly. Somewhere on an ocean and somewhere at a desk, these 2 polar opposites share a breath. Somewhere in between the paper and the water. That's probably happening right now as we listen and speak. Again, back to water. This next one is actually one of my all-time favorites. All these poems were written this year, and I've had many favorites come and go, and I've had some really hang on to the top spot. So this one's my all-time favorite this year, and I think it's in 3rd place of the all-times. It's called Water and Rain. I long to go down to the shore again, to hear the water speak to the rain, to see the seagulls fly on high, to hear the sadness in their cry. The tender years when I was young, when rainbows round my shoulders hung, those sky blue days of golden tears, these sky blue eyes long for those years. The long and winding path grows pale. The mast now hung with ragged sail sits all alone on a desolate shore, and I'll hear the seagulls nevermore. The fleeting magic of youth is gone, life's music now a fading song. The sky blue skies have turned to gray, and soon my soul will fly away. The days of life are beginning to fade, an age-old stain on invisible suede. And I long to go down to the shore again, to hear the water speak to the rain, to hear the water speak to the rain. Yeah, one of my favorites now. And it actually does speak to the rain when the rain hits the waters. I'm sure there's whispers here. If we could only decipher them, but alas, we can't. This next one is also another one of my favorites this year. It's called Beautiful Butterfly. And I'll send this one out to Linda because she loves butterflies. The butterfly followed me along the shoreline, a beautiful butterfly of colorful design. How odd, I thought, on a day so hot that a butterfly would follow the blue water line. It started to flutter to and fro with every step, each stop and go, mostly sitting on my right-hand side as I walked the shallows of the incoming tide. As the day grew weary and I traveled on, I thought that butterfly would be long gone. But alas, it steadfast stayed at my side as I walked the shallows of the incoming tide. I walked and I whispered to that butterfly of memories and dreams and days gone by. I was certain it was more than a mere insect, as it seemed to command my deepest respect. And then it hit me out of the blue. Perhaps it was karma and someone I knew. So I began humming a familiar song, and a hint of your essence sidled along. A beautiful butterfly followed me home. I knew you were here. I wasn't alone. Now each day I walk along the shoreline, my beautiful butterfly, soft on my mind. Yeah, it was, well, it never really happened because no butterfly would stick by me that long, but I imagined it stayed with me. The next one here is another beautiful one called Beautiful Magic. Beautiful Magic. This one is very nice. You come to me softly in dreams at night, beckoning me through the hazy twilight at the edge of a broken, dissolving dawn where everything but the dream is gone. The orchestra's tuned for a rock symphony. I'm writing this song to you from me. And all my days, bittersweet and tragic, are blown away in this beautiful magic. I see our shadows chasing our shadows, outrunning the sun, lacing them up as they come undone. There's a taste to the air, not there before, leaving me hungrier and wanting more. And all my days, bittersweet and tragic, are blown away in this beautiful magic. Just blown away in this beautiful magic. Yeah. I love to think of that beautiful magic. Now here's one. I'll tell you how this one came about. It's kind of strange, as a lot of mine are. But I was looking up at the night sky, and the sun was kind of red as it was setting. And sometimes I can make my eyes go vacant and kind of see things that aren't there. But I saw the red sun that was setting kind of move up into the dark of the sky. And it looked like Beaujolais wine, like a night Beaujolais wine sky, red Beaujolais. So I wrote the poem, Night's Beaujolais Beaujolais wine. In the heartland glitter of sage and shine, night falls like dark red Beaujolais wine. Hiding the beauty and scent of the rose, the sky's eyes flutter, then slowly close. Beneath the sudden descent of darkness, clouds fall to their knees and start to undress. A sacred vibration awakens the sky as throngs of angels slowly pass by. Then the dark night's Beaujolais wine ebbs into the dawn of a sage and shine day. The dew on the rose fades, then disappears as the sun reaches down to dry our tears. Hazing above the horizon line, I flow in the wake of a smooth white wine. Swinging new songs, I sway with the old as the heat of the music abates and grows. Life on a string, spun, then unspun. The days growing weary and coming undone. I've had my glory, my time in the sun. I've passed the baton, my race has been run. So long I've sojourned in life's lost and found. Now, moving through light's music and sound, I stand in the quick of night's Beaujolais wine, in awe of God's grandeur and noble design. Yeah, I think I really stood there sometime, somewhere. How can you tell the difference between reality and non-reality? I guess sometimes you can't, but that's the fun part of writing poetry. So this next one is called Heaven's Sea. See, I told you there was a lot of water coming up. So this one's, excuse me, Heaven's Sea. A distant water beckons me close, still too far away. I lie beneath a tall oak tree and listen as her branches sway. I visualize your tears and smiles hazing through the fog and rain, and I would walk 100 miles if I could hold you once again. Inside the hearkening twilight, a lonely whisper beckons me to walk into the waiting light, to sail with you on heaven's sea. Amongst the lilacs where I lie, I offer them my wettest tears, and all the while the fading sky above me slowly disappears. No need to walk 100 miles to hold you once again. I taste your tears, feel your smiles, calling me into the rain. I leave behind my written words, my paintings, and a melody. I shed my flesh to fly with birds and sail with you on heaven's sea, to hold you once again inside this sacred rain. Now, I'm going into like another little phase. This is the last phase. And it's kind of like getting ready to pass on. It's getting ready to go into dementia if you have to, Alzheimer's or whatever has to happen. When you're in the latter years of your staying inside this realm before you go on holidays. So I've kind of tried to make these ones go in order so it can kind of build like a step ladder thing, but I'm not sure if I was successful in that, so we'll see. Summer free verse, summer rhyming. The first one's free verse. It's called Forgetting. I forget things now with a bit more frequency, followed by a hollow feeling of alarm. But there is comfort in the forgetting. It wraps itself around me, a warm blanket, a lullaby, and for a moment, I'm a baby again, in a flash of dream and sleep. Then, back to reality, which seems a more unfamiliar fit with each passing day. The aging process needs the forgetting to prepare us to leave the familiar. I forget things more and more with each passing day as I cling more to my warm blanket in the unfamiliar lullaby of my last chapter. And And this next one has been a favorite of mine since I wrote it. I think I wrote it in 2018, but I can't remember. It's in my book, Rhythmus Aeternum, which is all rhyming poetry. I worked on that one for a long time, but this is the kind of introduction poem that starts before the poetry, and then it's called Turned Inside Out. And I tried to imagine what it would be like if I was going into Alzheimer's and I knew it, and I couldn't do anything about it. And then so I decided, well, I'm not going to fight it, sort of thing. So this is what I figured it would be like. Turned inside out, wandering into Alzheimer's night, I'm fading away from reality's light. I've forgotten the words to your favorite song, and the lyrics to mine don't seem to belong. I can't differentiate between right and wrong, and memories I cherished are now lost and gone. I reach for my cane as my hands start to ache. I can't recall when my bones didn't ache. I look in the mirror and see a white streak has replaced the black strands of my widow's peak. Then my mind starts to wander and my eyes glaze over. I'm a child again, running through fields of clover. But still, there are things I barely remember. And January's now just a prolonged December. But I've learned many things from my sojourn on earth. There's two sides to everything, each of great worth. A whisper's the other side of a shout. And today is just yesterday, turned inside out. Probably is too. Yeah, it's going to be a fun transition. I'm trying to prepare myself for it. This one, I've just got a couple more to end everything off. I've sort of, like I said, tried and made it a movement through a journey. This one's called Inside the Pool. I dive into a whirlpool of scattered days, searching for a wet in a river ablaze. And death's hollow voice is calling to me from a far-off land and a distant sea. An orchid is blooming on a sand dune, a story foretold by an ancient rune. And I am at rest in the crease of old ways, rewriting the pages of all my days. I imagine I've died and crossed over death's sea. I'm standing alone, no one's there to greet me. I'm wrapped in a pastel fog's tranquility, but there's no other place I'd rather be. Alone but not lonely in my decease, I'm filled with a new awe and inner peace. In sins and transgressions I sizzle and burn, cleansing my soul for my destined return. Inside the pool of my scattered days, I find my truth in a crumbling maze. Life's come hither voice is calling to me as I think through death's floor back into life's sea. So that's kind of a little reincarnation kind of thing there. What's interesting, what prompted this poem was I was having a major operation, and I guess it was hard for them to get me out of the anesthetic afterwards. And I could hear somebody calling me. They kept calling me. And I was standing in a beautiful valley, just gorgeous valley, and it was so nice. But I was all alone. And I remember thinking, I wonder why nobody's here. But it was really beautiful. And it wasn't until finally they kept yelling at me, and I came out. I didn't wonder what I did. And about a week later, I realized the valley I was standing in was a painting I had painted, a watercolor painting that I had called Pastoral Dream. And it was exactly that. That's exactly what I was standing in. And it's just so strange. So very strange. Yes. Two more and I'm done. These are my exit ones as I'm blurring out of reality here. Deep inside the dream, cradled in the womb of time, I'm swaying on a quarter line. I walk this dream with hobbled feet, down a dark and dusty street. Beneath a brackish crescent moon, I watch twilight crash into noon. I see the ornate cable cars climbing to embrace the stars. And all the while, a silent song whispers as I travel on. It seems a quite familiar tune. Reminds me of a night in June when I was summer in the fall, so far removed from winter's call. And now the days are losing light as I hold hands with pending night. Cradled in the womb of time, soliloquizing pantomime, soul unraveling at the seam, I am the dream, deep inside the dream. And now for my swan song exit. Swan song exit. This is a different poem. It's free verse, but it's I kind of like it. It's called Songs of the Past. The sweetest songs of the past have long since been digested in the echoes of lost time. And I am sequestered in the moments of life, counting the seconds and minutes at the expense of the hours. Whispers and sounds of the future try to weave their way into my ice-riddled eyes, that I may see the future, but I am oblivious to the incoming tide, unaware of my impending demise. Oh, for that last sweet draw of breath before I dance again with death, to those sweet, sweet songs of the past, long since digested in the echoes of lost time, where I come face to face with myself, the real me, the one I've never met. I turn my ear to the quickening sound of those sweet, sweet songs of the past, softly calling me home. I reach out to clasp the welcoming hand of death and softly whisper, listening ears, take my breath away, take my breath away. Thank you all so much for listening to me ramble on about basically nothing, but I had fun doing it. Thanks.
Oh gosh, you had lots of depth in those poems, lots of meaning. They were not nothing. Thank you so much, Candice. Yeah. When did you first know that poetry was your thing? Candice.
I guess, this is really, I'm glad you asked that because it's very different. I thought I was in grade 7 or 8. And then I thought I was a little bit more in grade 10 or 11. Then after that, I thought, no, I don't really think I am. And then what actually really got me into poetry, the good daughter, when she was young, was she at daycare, she just didn't fit in, and they said they couldn't handle her. So I had to quit my job when she was 4, and she had to go to early childhood education. And I didn't know if she was going to have to go for 3 months or a year or whatever, but I had to take her. I lived in Crescent Beach, and I had to come all the way up to, Wally and bring her every day for 4 hours at KB Woodward School. And I could only shop for the first couple of weeks. And then what are you going to do, So I sat in the car and I wrote poetry and wrote poetry and wrote poetry. And she was in there for 3 months, which was good. She graduated, but I had a lot of poems by then. And that's when I realized, boy, I've really missed this. Yeah, I think I'm going to just keep writing forever. I didn't know I was a poet, but I loved it that much. I thought I'm never going to stop doing it.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Candice.
Yeah.
Yes.